them be, but if several are beginning to understand that they need that roadmap to allow that. And when you have that roadmap, you begin to create the opportunities then for public-private partnership. You know, looking at why do you need that? Increasing infrastructure investment. You can't do it by yourself. You're getting into many of the African countries. I've missed flights a few times. You know, just the congestion is not predictable. Some days you go through, the next time you might be there for 4 hours or upwards of that. So we can't do all that. Mounting budget pressure. And this one is actually even more of the needs why you need that. The whole issue of innovation. The whole issue of bringing new ideas. When the private sector comes in, it's not only this is the way we've done it for the last 10 years. They are coming in because they want to maximize the shareholders' value. They are coming in and saying, what operational efficiencies are we going to use? How are we going to do maintenance? Which technology do we bring? Who do we need to bring in from different areas to allow us to operate our systems more efficiently? Those are part of the critical issues that the African countries are thinking about. And I can tell you that they are thinking about it. They may not have gotten to where we want them to be. They are struggling to have experts and have people committed to help them do that. And what you have found is that the economies, developing countries, economies that have transformed themselves, what you find out is that they transformed it particularly through their transportation system. Look at South Korea. You can see what they did with their rail system. Look at China. In fact, China is investing a lot much more in infrastructure than US is investing. Look at what they're doing with their airports. Look at what they're doing with the rail. Every transformed economy finds a way to transform its infrastructure because that's what heightens their global competitiveness. And that's what collectively we're going to be looking for the African countries to do. The other time that people come in and they will tell to me, you're an expert, how do you get your company or foreign companies to come to Africa to invest, to do public-private partnership? There is aid where they give you money and they tell you, you know, from the generosity of our hearts, you know, go do this. That will never be enough to make you of equal parallel to them. And so there is the issue of financing, there is issue of revenue, there is issue of procurement and innovative delivery. All these go hand in hand. So let me give you a little example of the difference between revenue and finance. Finance is really, you know, so in US, you buy a house and you get a mortgage. The bank finances that house for you based on your revenue, based on the mortgage that you'll be paying every month. If you do not have the ability to pay that monthly mortgage every year, the bank will not finance you. Do you understand that? So that, your job that you have, or the business that you have, generates money for which when the bank finances you, they have a steady way of getting it. And many of the African countries want to go, oh, go and get JP Morgan or go and get this person to finance us. They will be willing to finance you if you show how the revenue will be coming in to pay them. Is that making sense? And that's what they look at. And if they can't see how are you going to pay me back? So you build it and you say, well, we're going to put tolls on them. Then they come back and say, how many people will use the tolls? What time of day? How much would we charge in order to get that revenue to pay us back? Do you understand that? It's the same thing if you go to Canada, actually. Many of their heating system, the tank, or the electricity, when people invest, they expect to know who is going to use it in order to get those things out. So, but many times people don't quite understand that. Your system of how you're going to procurement, the transparency, the complexity, all those things affect who is going to compete. If you're here representing the African countries, what they really need, what part of what we need is the transparency. You want to encourage competition. You don't want to put this thing in a way that only one country can give you that. I understand that time is up. Is that what the signal is?
Actually, we've gone way beyond it, but if
oh, really?
if you want to take a few questions or...
Yes. Yeah. Let me then stop with this. This slide really talks about the different level of competitiveness or, private sector investment. I don't see quite a bit of this in Africa. I see it quite in thing. This is called managed contracts, where, for example, 7 years ago, the city of Washington, D.C. said, we have all these streets, but we are going to contract out people to maintain it. And we have specific conditions. And in return, we'll pay you X amount of money every year. No, it'll take back down. I think Nigerian Ports Authority tried to do something like that. But the government owns the infrastructure. U.S. do that quite a bit, or they have buses and all that. They bring somebody private because that's where they lack either the discipline or the accountability or union, whatever it is. We want you to come and operate to do that. So they have performance agreement, they have managed contract. We need to think about it. In those some areas, you might say, we're going to bring in foreign experts or even experts in Nigeria to help us manage that. This one is concession. That's part of really what is happening in Africa, where you can come in and they give you long-term leasing. Let's say the ports that you're talking about. Tanzania can come in and say, okay, if you come in, we will give you 30 years leasing on the contract. Now you build it and you collect money. We would have some agreement. You build it, you operate it, and at some point you transfer it after those things. And when I go into advice, you have to think about the conditions and the rates, and when they transfer it, where it will be. The other extreme end of privatization, which is part of what Nigerian is doing with power, is to say we sell it completely and we take our hands off. We might be minority shares, but each of them, the key here is that there are different ways that we in United States, you in business, can get into operations in Africa. You don't have to go and own it outright. In fact, while I was in Ghana, Thelma, okay. I went into this hotel. It was almost like China City. And so I started talking to I'm not going to do my side stories, but the Chinese guy in front was trying to explain to me how to check in. He couldn't, his English was very limited. So when he gets stuck, there was a young Ghanaian that he would look to, the guy would help him out with it. But at the end, I started asking him, and then they have Chinese restaurant. It's like Chinese city. So I asked him and said, how did you get this? But what he told me after several trying to repeat is that they came in and they got a lease on that hotel that was struggling for 10 years. Now they rehabbed it and managed it. I suspect that by the time the 10 years is gone, either they will buy up that thing outright or they will build their own hotel that the one that they have now will become useless. But they reshaped that place. So there are various ways. Maybe it's school and we're struggling. You go in and you get the long-term lease. They talked about the vocational school. So you take a technical school, you get that long-term lease. The question that American companies struggle with is if I do a deal with you today and you're the governor, somebody else comes in, will my deal stand? If it doesn't stand, I have all these sources of money that I've gotten that I don't know. Or even if it's you, and we have a deal, and we have a contract, and we have a dispute, can I get a fair hearing? Is your legal system such that I can get redress? And that's where the challenge and the opportunity. So with that, there are comments and questions. I thought we had till 11:30.
Yes. We wanted to make it more interactive, so
Okay.
11, so
Okay. So your thoughts, ideas, your reflections, questions, comments? Yes.
There's a difference, like we talked about, the difference in Africa between different areas. And you're in East Africa, and you're in West Africa.
Yes. That's a good beginning.
How
So
do you-
the East and the
your
West.
issues are totally different.
Uh-huh.
So you may be on different continents. What do you see as the major focus of what would improve the roads? Because both of you had common roads. In development, electricity too, but it all came down to, once we have electricity, we need the roads. And once we have whatever infrastructure, we need the roads. It came down, both of you talking about roads. So what do you see as the major obstacle to getting the roads built? You said drainage, right?
I would put that under a larger broad of technical expertise, and knowledge transfer could be one big thing. The side that I don't see a lot in Africa that I see in many of the Western world, particularly in large experience in delivering large infrastructure projects, would be one of what I would call, is that in US here, and that's what my company and other people do, Connecticut or any of the states, when they are building, sometimes they recognize that maybe the ministry may not have all the skill sets that they need and want. They go out and hire what they call a program manager. The program manager then becomes the owner's representative. So in that program manager, they pull all kinds of people. If they need a finance person, they get them. If they need a civil engineer, they get them. In Africa, it's quantity surveyors, they get them. If they need architect, but somebody who does that, who understands it, and is able to help you pull these resources and get it. So I think making that happen is an issue. Obviously, there is the issue of, do you have money and do you have resources? But that expertise and knowledge transfer, making it, would be a place too where foreign people can play, strong need. Any comment?
Yeah, I'm not a finance person, but I would have expected, because I know there's a bridge, for example, that we in Dar es Salaam they're building to connect the sea, to connect two areas that there was no bridge that people used to cross by the ferry. And I believe, I don't know, Charles, maybe you know, but there's going to be a toll bridge. That's how I think money will be invested back. I believe. I think that's one way of trying to get roads to an investor to come and bring in roads and get to return this investment by toll. One big challenge we have in Tanzania, and I believe it's common in the African countries, the road building, the cost of building a kilometer of road is, in Tanzania at least, is higher than
Africa is 2-3 times higher in Africa. But
there are two costs. There's the government cost, which is very high because of all the corruption, and I'm sorry to say, and all the things. So the cost is just so exaggerated, and but the actual cost, the difference is very big. Now, how to go?
But you see, the thing, if you're in this field, part of the African problem. I was watching a friend in Lagos, and I saw construction. I told him, I said, I can save 25% of this cost without doing anything dramatic. If you are here in US and you have big project, there are the people that they train in Africa as quantity surveyors, we call them estimators here. You load, then you have a schedule. There are people that they are paid big time money to do schedule, to lay out that the electrician comes before the plumber, that the plumber comes before this. And you're going into construction sites in Africa, or there are some places you see people are still carrying concrete on the head, and they're going back and forth. Here, a mixer just pours it out. So there are certain things that there are certain costs that we can easily eliminate and make it more efficient to help us. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that my name is Chief. The example you just gave, for example, because he as a result of cost implication. Back home, you know, the cost of labor is quite cheap.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a mixer and, you know, people carrying concrete and pouring it into the construction site. If you do the cost-benefit analysis, the possibility that the people will be labor, the high-intensive labor approach is cheaper than what you're seeing back home. Could be high. I also do understand, of course, I mean, the science is, of course, you know, more exact than, you know, manual approaches. So what I'm trying to, the point I'm making there is that the contractor might see that as a cheaper way of executing the same task. You know, as against from the mechanized approach back here in Western economy.
Yeah, but what would happen as the economy goes and as the Western world comes in, check in 20 years, those contractors may not be in place.
They will evolve.
Yeah, because they can't compete effectively. When I told you I was in Nairobi, and I mean Arusha, okay, it was HEP, aid, and what they were looking at was how to construct roads. And their whole idea is that they are providing employment by having these women that go in and they are carrying gravel and, you know, and do it. They show a lot of them and they come in and they tell them how many people they've employed. The aid guy was from China, I think Japan or somebody. I asked him, I said, in your economy, is that how you do it? Because what happens when the rain comes next year, it washes the thing away, and then you come back again to the same people. And my question was, isn't it better that we train these people in a marketable skill? That we turn some of them to electricians, to plumbers, to other fields that they can help in growing the economy. Instead of this repeat cycle, next year they are still there, and that road is still that way. Yes.
Yeah, let me, you know, when we're coming, we rode together. I told you that I'm in discussion with the state government back home and the possibility of getting a concession from them to build a 15 to 16 kilometer road that would charge to fund it is very high. When you do that, and you compare to what we have in Lagos, the Lake axis, where you have those sweepers, you have all sorts of, you know, manual labor, even though they are paid very powerful sums. I want to tell you that back home, 20,000 naira, 5,000 naira a month is a lot of money. It will change the life of a family. So I'm not talking about the quality of work they do. I mean, like the example you gave in Tanzania. What I want to focus you on is that ability to create a labor-intensive environment, in addition to meeting, you know, your standards in the West, is important. I know that some families quietly change their lifestyle, their standard of living with just 25,000 naira. That's about $100 per month. And I think most governments are focusing on how to engage in as many people as possible. And you're talking about training people to become electricians, plumbers, and all of that. That takes time. That's a medium-term thing. If you're talking about projects in the near term, you must evolve. You must become ingenious in your strategies as to how to provide you know, the required skill sets to deliver on quality projects, achieving the same standards you're talking about.